Thank you. If I would like to take a moment personally just to thank my my military fellow, Lieutenant Colonel Sean Foster. This is his last hearing. He's an Army JAG officer. He has been incredibly helpful to my office. I'm very appreciative of the military for providing us fellows. Sean was particularly terrific. He is leaving to go to the Army Legislative Liaison Office, so all of us will get to know him better. But I wanted to briefly recognize his great work in my office over the last 2 years. I'm going to miss Sean a lot. How many of you have read the November 2017 DoD IG Top 10 Management Challenges that was issued in November? Everybody read it? No?
No, ma'am.
Who has read it?
I glanced over it. I must admit it was in my read-ahead package.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, I read it yesterday.
Okay, Secretary Esper, have you read it?
No, ma'am.
How about you, Secretary Wilson?
No.
Okay. I'm going to ask this question almost every time any of you come up here. I'm going to ask you if you've read IG reports. Nothing is more irritating to me than when the really hard work of GAO and the IGs identify problems and really make your job easier in terms of where you should focus, and nobody consumes the product. It's really important, I think, that all of you consume this product because they identified 10 challenges of management, and that's what your jobs are, is management. I'm going to focus on a couple of those today, but I certainly would advise all of you to take this report seriously. Sustainment problems. The market leveraging for spare parts. They identify in this report that for the H-60 helicopter used by the services and SOCOM, that they have purchased 2.9 million spare parts for the H-60, DoD has, using 2,000 separate contracts. Awarded to 590 different contractors over a 12-month period for almost $400 million. And often these parts were purchased for different prices, the same part. This is, the kind of stuff that just makes you want to tear your hair out as somebody who's a former auditor. What roadblocks can you identify, Secretary Lord, that would keep you from fixing something ridiculous like that? I mean, 2,000 separate contracts to 590 different contractors for spare parts for the same helicopter.
Since August, I've been doing a lot of data dives to understand the body of work in the acquisition workforce, and this is the type of thing I keep coming across. And what I find is a couple trends relative to sustainment. One, early on in programs, people aren't thinking about designing for sustainability. They're not thinking about setting up the right contract vehicles. It's often rather reactionary for different parts. So as we develop these systems, we need a holistic contracting strategy, because contracting is a strategy into
I just think you guys should, when something comes online, you should begin the process of identifying a handful of contractors, because you want the consistency, and if somebody falls off, you've got others, and to get the best deal and leverage the best deal for that helicopter. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've sat in this committee and pointed out inefficiencies between the services for things that they're all using.
That's where AT&L comes into play. We talk about delegating programs back. That's absolutely what we want to do. Where AT&L can be very helpful, and A&S moving forward, is taking that horizontal look across the services for similar programs that leverage the same bill of materials and do the types of buys you're talking about.
I don't have much time left. I'm gonna, for the record, I'm gonna ask you about reporting contractor past performance. It's another really irritating thing for me that we have bad contractors and we keep doing business with them with no consequence whatsoever. We never remove them from the list. But the last thing I really want to touch on is supply chain management risks. In this report, I was really concerned about the identified risk of an adversary infiltrating the supply chain and sabotaging, maliciously introducing unwanted function or otherwise compromising the design or integrity. They specifically point out the Missile Defense Agency as it relates to ground-based mid-course defense system. That's obviously of grave concern. I'm out of time, but what I would like for each one of you to do is to speak to me, especially Secretary Lord. What are you doing to secure the supply chain in terms of the integrity being compromised? I don't need to explain to any of you what the dire consequences of that could be in today's world.
I would be happy to do that. In fact, I just had an early morning meeting with General Ashley from DIA about that very topic in my office this morning.
I will ask about all of these 10 management areas, but I would recommend the next time you come, check and see if an IG report or a GAO report has been issued in the last 30 days, because I guarantee I'm going to ask you about it. And I will tell you, I'm following up. You wouldn't believe this, Senator McCain, but when I was with Secretary Wilson at the Air Force Base in Missouri, which was terrific that she visited, she told me that she was trying to hire trainers for the Joint Strike Fighter. And they sent over somebody to get approved for hiring at OPM, and guess what OPM told them? They didn't have enough experience flying the Joint Strike Fighter. So obviously, the job requirements that are imposed upon you by OPM sometimes are ridiculous, beyond the pale. Clearly, nobody at OPM knew that nobody had flown the Joint Strike Fighter yet. Has that been resolved? And I'm working on it from my end. I just wanted you to know.
Thank you for your help on this one. We can surely continue to use the help.
Did you get it approved finally?
That particular one has been approved, but my average time to hire a civilian is about 180 days. And it
Totally
is a major
ridiculous.
issue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.